Well, it's all about the quest for a new Black Stars coach. And when it comes to football, many have demonstrated that they will still ride or die with the Black Stars. So our football crazy citizens have been talking in mass proportions following the sacking of Black Stars head coach C.K. Akuno. Now, reaction to the GFA's decision has been mixed, but many have been curious about what rabbit the GFA will be pulling out of its hat now that the 72-hour timeline to decide on a new coach has elapsed. Now, former Black Stars coach Serbian Milovan Rajevac seems to be the favorite for the job. And although two Ghanaian coaches in a row haven't delivered on expectations, many Ghanaians remain unsure if Milo is the coach we need at this time. Now, today, more expert perspectives on this, and I'm joined in the studio by Vincent Soa Odote, former MP for Dade Kotopon, former Deputy Communications Minister, and a former MD for Accra Hearts of Oak, but he's a current board member of Hearts of Oak. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Jifa.
Great. And
nice to see you again.
Yes, good to see you too. And Michael Otieje, GM News and Digital here at MG, has 2 decades of sports journalism under his belt. Mike, thanks for joining me today as well.
My pleasure.
Great.
Good seeing you again.
Good. So many are still talking about what's going to happen with the GFA. So let me come to you, Honorable Odote. For you, the 72-hour timeline has elapsed. Milo seems to be the favorite. For you, do you think it's a done deal or there are still other consultations?
Well, first of all, thank you, and let me say good morning to my listeners, especially my Phobian family. And then my constituents are Dade Kotopon. Jifa, I think I would rather say that I don't know. I can't say whether it's a done deal. I really don't want to get into it. But what I'll say is that I think it's a step in the wrong direction. I think that when you look at Milo's performance, his football philosophy, and when we look at what he has done since he left the Black Stars, and where we think that as a country, what we aspire to be, I think it's a very risky thing. The FA is going by Milovan Rajevac, so we hope to we live to see whether it's Rajevac or someone else. But to me, I think it's a risky choice. I don't know the considerations, the terms of reference given to the committee. I don't know what the bigger considerations in the whole paradigm, what we call in these days here, football talk about the project. But that really the criteria that brings in Milovan Rajevac. But I think that it's a risky thing. If I were on the panel, I think a lot of people are putting the cart before the horse and looking at financial obligation. No, I'm sure you know that's in management. You take the technical evaluation before you come to financial. On my paper, Rajevac would never be even shortlisted on my technical evaluation. I think it's a risky thing, and I hope that my colleagues at the FA will take a deep breath if they're not taking the decision already, and look at what is good for this country. And for once, let's make sure we take the decisions which are sustainable, which will make us competitive, and make sure that we are able to get back to where we think, not where we know we should be in the scheme of global football.
The reason why I asked about other consultations is that ultimately it's the state that will pay the coach. So do you get a sense from your friends in government that they would want to pay Milovan Rajevac, or they're willing to pay, but maybe not for him?
To be honest with you, I haven't really, I don't have any insight into and any links into all these things from both the government side and the FA. I'm just looking at it purely from someone who's been in football and someone who has taken a position of over close to 2 decades, that the football leadership has been poor. We failed as a football thing to really manage with the science. We manage with sentiment and shortcuts and everything. If we were paying CK Akuno $25,000, I believe that if we have to pay, from what I'm hearing, 45,000, 50,000, my experience in football, that if we take our time, we'll get somebody who will give us value for money, who would be able to steer the affairs of the football, the Black Stars, within the broad uncompetitive paradigm of football in this country, within the broad poor structures in the country, within the broad poor strategy of the football in this country, I believe with 50,000 US dollars, if we take our time and make sure that we take the decisions which based on science, facts, and not on sentiment, and learning our lessons in the past 2 decades since since Ben Kofi, I believe that we'll be able to get a coach who will give us real value for money, who will give us the space to be able to, in the medium term, put our house in order domestically and put us back in the competitive pedal.
Mike, most people know that really what Ghanaians want is to do well at the African Cup. We've not had an African Cup win since the 80s. Many want to top what we achieved at the World Cup. Are we in the right space to do that, in spite of whichever coach we get?
Well, I think you have to naturally look at it from within the perspective of which coach comes in. Success within football, and the Honorable former MP and my former Wachi partner makes a very brilliant point about how you must situate this within the science and the technicalities and everything of it. But football success is a very complicated thing. It requires bringing deep knowledge of various fields. Then you merge them. Then people think the technicalities is the biggest part. It's just an aspect of it. You've got to manage player travels. You've got to manage player egos. So that's psychology straight away. You've got to manage media exposure. That's communication. Then there's the technicality. I look at it from within a certain perspective. I think that we have enough to remain very competitive on this continent. I think the argument that we don't have enough talent to be competitive is absolute nonsense. I have become convinced this week in the Champions League, there was a Ghanaian player who was playing for FC Sheriff in the Champions League making his debut, and a lot of people had heard of him. People were amazed to see in the Paris Saint-Germain game when Messi and the rest played, and Neymar, that one of the best players was Kamal Soa, who is a Ghanaian, who is the record buy for Club Brugge. Kudus is back for Ajax. Partey will play maybe this weekend. There is Daniel Amate. We started a game against Ethiopia with 3 players who start games in the English Premier League. So I am unconvinced by the talent argument. I also think the Honorable former MP makes a brilliant point about management of the game. And I think it can become significantly better than it is now. The technicality has been a problem. I can understand the sentimental attachment to Milovan Raivat, and I situate it purely within the numbers. So this is a man who in 3 major tournaments with the Black Stars took the team to 2 finals. That was the local, the championship for players based in your local leagues, Chan in 2009 in Ivory Coast. Then he took the Black Stars to the final of the 2010 Nations Cup. Then he took Ghana to within a penalty kick of the of the World Cup. In the modern era, since we last won the Nations Cup, no coach has had as much impact on the Black Stars. So that's the sentimental value. Now, when you are a manager and you are hiring, you must balance sentiment with current value. The current value says it's not a good choice. The current value says this is a man who was sacked from Thailand in 2019. This is a man who has done pretty little since then. We did an artwork that spoke to how many, what he's been up to in terms of jobs since then. And it was too much. He's in charge of Algeria. It was the sack with Thailand.
Hardly of Saudi Arabia.
Yes, and then he was in charge of Qatar. It's just not exuded.
It's not a good record that he comes back to Ghana with.
Yes, but in football, sentiment is a strong thing.
But knowing that he doesn't come back to Ghana with this record, certainly the government has a right to say, well, we don't want him. GFA, go back and do another job.
You know the way I hear people say this a lot, but the way the relationship about who pays the coach and who is fairly simple. The Honorable MP will know this. It's almost an unwritten rule that even though government is paying,
the decision lies with the FA.
Yes. So there will be certain high-level policy decisions that's made with significant government influence. So, for instance, the last time when Kwesi Appiah was relieved of his job, the government said, we think it would be better to have a Ghanaian lead this team. So effectively, the choice of who to employ became limited by government's decision to want a local coach. And that's sentiment, I personally think. I say that you have consultants in economics, energy, every field. You don't bother about their passport, but when it comes to football, we seem to think that it must be one, that you must carry a passport to be able to do that job. So that's where it ends. I'm not sure there will be a lot of... Also, by the time the decision is announced, it means that there's significant consultation in the background. So I don't think that Milovan's name in the mix came by accident. It's come because there's been consultation and everybody agrees in the background that this is potentially a good choice. My understanding is that it's been held back by complications over who the assistant will be. So there are suggestions that it could be Otoado, which feeds
He's
into...
coaching,
He's
an
assistant coach at
in
Dortmund.
Germany. Yeah.
Played for the Black Stars. Very good gentleman. But apparently he is unsure whether he must quit that job and come and do this
knowing
full-time.
the dynamics that we have to deal with here.
But a lot of countries are beginning to realize that you can't have your best football talent stop what they are doing at club level to work for you full-time if they are not full-time managers. So there are a lot of national team assistant coaches who work part-time. So if Ivory Coast want Kolo Touré to help them now, Kolo Touré is an assistant at Leicester. He's not going to leave that Leicester job to go and sit in Ivory Coast and work. So that's potentially a similar arrangement. I understand there was an approach to George Boateng. He was born in Ghana but lived in Holland his whole life, played for Holland. He's coach of the Aston Villa under-23 team. But he said unless he's the head coach, he's not quitting his job to come. And when I look at all these options, I think the right choice is allowing ourselves to panic. We are panicking. We feel like the World Cup is such an important target that in our mind we absolutely don't get it wrong. So we are unprepared to try people we clearly have a certain level of interest in, which is a George Boateng or an Otoado. We are unprepared to wait a bit longer, and like he said, I've heard people say that to get a top-class coach you need $100,000. Absolute lies.
Well, I like, is it Rene?
But
yes.
But you see, the truth of the matter is this, that Renard is in charge of Saudi Arabia.
Oh, I don't
Saudi
dispute
Arabia,
that. I'm just saying.
Saudi Arabia qualifies for the World Cup on a regular basis. He gets paid very good money.
So if you want him, you must top that.
He will not even leave to come. The guy is on maybe like $100,000 a month. The perks, the quality of life. You know, it's also there's a lot of, I'm sorry to say this, but in this period there's a lot of complicated journalism, to put it nicely. So there's a lot of things out there remote from the truth. The bottom line is that there is a certain agreement at a certain level, but I also know that in football a lot of things can change. Over the weekend, something may happen, somebody may have a new awareness, a new coach becomes available. Chris Hughton became available at Nottingham Forest. He's half Ghanaian.
Yes, he's half Ghanaian.
You understand?
But I understand for somebody like him, if he's coming with a full team, 7 people or so.
Every coach goes with a full team.
Yeah, so
I mean, these days, even radio presenters move with full teams. Listen, in football, you've got to do what you have to do to be able to do well. It's as simple as that. When he speaks about the administration, the technicality, there are no shortcuts. Some coaches want, all you need to do, some coaches want a video analyst. They want a physical trainer. They want the guy who trains the goalkeeper. Some coaches will come and say, I want to be in complete control of everybody who works in this team.
Now we have a free kick expert.
Yes, you understand. And I like our system for a reason. We have decided that our national team is also a capacity building tool. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we say to any coach who comes that our goalkeepers trainer will be one of our ex-international goalkeepers, and we'll put them in that capacity. We insist on a Ghanaian being an assistant coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way it's worked. When we were at the 2010 World Cup, Kwesi Appiah was Raiva's assistant. Then it built his capacity beyond a certain point. We can have a debate about how useful that proved to be later on. But Silas Tete was Claude Leroy's assistant in 2008. So we have to insist on having a measure of control over that back room. But any coach with their sorts will carry their background stuff with them.
Quick point from you, Honorable Odote. So you believe we have time. We should take our time and look for someone else.
Well, if you've been in football, football administration and management, and you had to high, experience should tell you that if you take your time and do a scientific, your approach it scientifically, you could get a coach who could come in who is worth a sell within a week. The decisions he will take in terms of selection, in terms of putting things in place, it could make an impact. At least I've had experiences from Hearts of Oak, from King Faisal, of course. Someone will argue about the national team. I believe that the 72 hours was too onerous, was too short. And from where we are and the depths to which I believe we've sunk, I believe that we need to take our time and make sure that we get the technical evaluation right. We should take both the decisions driven by short-term considerations and the medium-term considerations, so that and that will ensure that we take it within a certain defined policy in a certain direction that we want our football to go. If we don't do that, trust me, with the kind of paradigm that we have, football system that we have in this country, where you have a high turnover of players, where there's a lack of... Michael speaks about talent. We have a natural talent in terms of the football. But in terms of football administration in this country, we don't have the management talent. I'm sure a lot of people will argue with me, but that's been our bane. A lot of people are very sentimental, and I've heard some of my senior colleagues speak about we've always won won all our 4 African Cup of Nations with local talent. That's an unscientific argument. The environmental factors within that time, in terms of technology, in terms of globalization, were completely different. We were completely different. And at the time of Osadifo, we had the best football paradigm on the African continent. Our youth football was localized in the communities. We had academicals. We had within the schools. There was a plan from grassroots football to the national team, and the state was part involved. We had the best, so that's why we were successful. That doesn't apply now. I don't think we should go for a local coach. CK, Duncan, the rest of them, we are all very good friends. But let me tell you something. If we don't look into we don't take the bull by the horns and take the decisions and do a proper situational evaluation of where we are as a country and where we think our natural talent will take us, we'll make a hasty decision. 72 hours to appoint a Black Star coach from the state of football that we are now. I think it's too short a time, and I think it's a rush. As Michael said, we shouldn't be hijacked and be blackmailed. We shouldn't blackmail ourselves with restricting ourselves to the John Boatengs, the Otto Addos, and then maybe Milovan Rajevac. We should not do that. We should make sure that we sit down, take a deep breath. A good coach can come within 2 weeks of our time to play the next World Cup, and trust me, anybody who is worth a salt can put a very winsome team together, at least to give us the time. We don't want to hear. From what we are doing, we run the risk of coming back and telling people we are rebuilding. We need time. I'm sure we don't want to run that risk. So I think that we need to take this decision within the broader aspect of where we want to take our football, and to us to be very competitive. We cannot do that in the short term. In the medium term, if we take our time, widen the net, make sure that we draw a proper evaluation, terms of reference, think through what we are doing carefully, think through it properly. I believe that we'll be able to get some very, very, very good coaches. Okay. Throughout my time at Hearts of Oak and King Faisal, we've been able to get some good foreign coaches for real value. Look at even Rajevac. When he first came in, who was he? What has he achieved? Nothing. But I think at that time, we took the right decision, and it paid off.
It was hunger.
Yes. Then Plavi came in. I think Plavi was not too bad at that time. I mean, a decade ago. We need to take our time and make sure we are guided by the science and a combination of the science and sentiments. But I'm afraid we need to be able to admit that the paradigm that we have now is uncompetitive.
When I come back to gentlemen, I'll just come back to the one issue you've raised, which I think is quite important, is the decision of selection, who gets on the team. But let's hear some Ghanaians about what they think about the choice, potentially, of Milovan Rajevac.
Are we bringing him on the basis that on his old track record with the Black Stars, or we are bringing Milovan because he's one of the top coaches in the world? Because if you look at his stint after Black Stars, there's nothing to write home about. He went to Qatar, he went to Thailand, he didn't achieve anything beyond that. Black Star is a big team. We can attract the best of the best if only we are willing and ready. So I believe we should be able to look beyond Milovan.
I think bringing Milovan, well, it's not a bad thing because he did good. It's not a bad thing, but I wouldn't accept it. There are so many coaches in Ghana we can explore.
Like we're going to try Ghanaian coaches. We've tried 1, 2. It's not working. I think maybe when we keep trying, we'll go and get one best out of it. But going back for Melody, it's just not for me.
To me, what I know is that if they will take a black coach, I prefer than to go and take a white coach.
For now, we need a foreign coach who really has the technical ability to put the Black Star on the pedal that we used to be.
And those were the thoughts of some Ghanaian football fans. So, Mike, let me come to you on the issue of selection, because you've said that you don't believe this argument of a lack of talent. But there's also the criticism of the GFA and those who select the boys to play, that we don't select the people who will deliver the goods for us. There's a view that some of the selections made, it's almost as if there's a certain agency football still going on in the system. And that's why we are not getting results. It's still the one goal project since Rajavac's time.
I'll hack you back to a story and why this is, from where I sit, a bit of a mute argument. When Rajavac was in charge of the Black Stars, he was accused of the same thing.
Yes.
Of choosing his own...
Yes. He was accused of doing agency pickups. But he took the team to 2 finals and he took them to a quarterfinal. Stojkovic, Blavi, dealt with the same thing. And as he said, he was not a West coach. He left Ghana because he didn't seem to have the temperament and the capacity to deal with other things outside football. Then Avram Grant was accused of the same thing. He took the Black Stars.
So what's wrong?
There's nothing wrong. I think people must... See, I keep saying to people that when you put a coach in charge of a team, unless the coach comes to me to say, I am not allowed to pick the players, then really the argument goes back and forth on it. Every player, so some of the arguments is about Baba Rahman, but we will pick a player who plays in the Championship of England. We pick a lot of players like that. All I'm saying is that...
Do we pick players that are playing regularly? Or we just
Yes, we pick players who play regularly. Again, one of the big misconceptions. So you can have... So we had Gideon Mensah, we had... the last game in Johannesburg, we had Gideon Mensah start at left back. We had Majid Ashimeru from Anderlecht. These were players people were calling to play. The Hasselhoff right back was regular. Richard Ofori, our goalkeeper, his first choice goalkeeper for Orlando Pirates in South Africa. We started with Mubarak Wakaso and the rest. I just think that there is, and again, I always go back to our most successful periods. At the height of our success, when we qualified for the World Cup in 2006, these were not players who were quote unquote made stars already. These were players who became stars off the back of the qualification and off the back of a fantastic World Cup display. One of our lead strikers was Joe Tex Frimpong. If Joe Tex Frimpong was ever in the national team now, we'll make the same argument. In fact, the player who scored the goal in 2006, that took us to the next round of the World Cup, Hamidou Dramani. And that's the period when I, as a journalist, stopped talking about how players are picked based on who influences what. Because we kept going on and on and on and on and on and on and on about it.
And then they delivered for us.
Exactly. Dramani scoring the crucial goal that took us through. I'm just saying that the problem with football is that too many people have
There are too many interest groups.
Yes. And so we will never agree on the call-up. Say, listen, when we sit here, the 3 of us, and you give us a list and said, pick 20 players for the Black Stars, we will not agree on anything.
Okay.
So imagine a man having to pick the players, and then I also don't understand why people think that if I am on the executive committee of the GFA and a coach brings a list, we cannot have a debate about it. It's the job of the coach to say, this is my list, this is what it is, this is what is final. And some coaches have done that.
People's,
exactly.
Unique.
You worked with coaches before, and you come up, you share an idea with them. He listens, he goes, he does what he wants. There's nothing wrong with that. I would have a portfolio to manage here. I always tell people that you will come to me and we will share the ideas, but ultimately, you have to convince me to buy into the idea. If I buy into the idea, I have effectively owned the idea. If you walk into a board meeting of 12 other people and they give you ideas about what to do and the rest, the moment you nod yes to it, the idea becomes yours. So if a coach goes into a meeting and selects his players, and somebody says, oh, this player is not good, why don't you call the other one? And he agrees, he's buying into the idea. We cannot say to people, don't say anything. You understand? It's just not possible. Where it becomes a problem is where there is an imposition. But that imposition can only be proved by the man in charge. And if you're a coach and you allow that to happen, and then you get out of the meeting and all you do is that when you lose a game, you use that as an excuse. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. In fact, your capacity to be able to withhold that sort of pressure is part of the qualities you need to be a coach. And that's why foreign coaches are so successful here. When Bukat Caesar came here, there was this habit of the sports ministers then walking into the dressing room at halftime to go and give motivational messages. He had never heard about it. He said, it will not happen. Halftime is a period for me to go through the game, talk through a few things, maybe give the mantle to the captain. Some other coach doesn't find any problem with it. It's not the reason they win or lose games. But they despised it. Avram Grant didn't like it. So that's the way it is. Everybody who worked the Kwesi Appiah, the GFA officials, knew that when he gave his list, to convince him to put anybody in or drop anybody was an incredible piece of work. So then there was a lot of consultation that would happen before that decision was made. But any coach who says that because he's a local coach, there's an imposition, then my friend, I'm sorry, you're not prepared for the job. You know?
Vincent, Honorable Vincent Sowat, do we speak to the right people to play for us?
Well, I think that I'll pick up on what it's the right people. Look, if you've been in football, let me be careful here. I mean, football, in football leadership, you have to be a leader in football. You have to listen to a lot of opinions. And this issue about player selection, it's about leadership of the team, as Michael said. That's what it is. Because, the examples is given Plavi. In the past, you want as sports ministers, even from Osaji Foster, but you, the coach who is in charge, must be reasonable. You know what you want. There must be considerations. Look, I've worked with football coaches who, before they select, ask you, Chairman, can you do the selection for us this weekend? Everybody does their selection. You pick all of them up. In the end, he picks them. In the end, he picks the 11 that must play. With the national team, there's a lot of interest. I don't think that is going to go away. But you, as the one in charge, with your vision, with your style of play, you should know that you have to be very collaborative. But at the end of the day, the buck will stop with you. So
but it seems our local coaches have more difficulty managing that aspect of the job. And I've heard a lot of people say, look, we want results. We should just go for a foreign coach. We should look for somebody who will take us to where we want to go. And where do we want to go? We want to win the African Cup. We want to get beyond the quarterfinals of the World Cup. I've even heard some people say, bring a coach in. If he doesn't deliver, sack him. Sack until you get what you want.
Coaches are hired to be fired. I'm not sure.
I think that's turbulence.
It's not turbulence. Chelsea have done it remarkably well. It's always what you want. Chelsea have done it remarkably well. Some clubs don't do it, some do it. Real Madrid will get rid of you if they have to and put you there. But it's a different environment. Do we speak to the right people? I think it's yes or no. When players, especially those born outside, make up their mind that they don't want to play for you, there's very little you can do.
Very little.
You understand?
Yeah.
And I always tell people that to sometimes you have to, one of my biggest arguments as well is that people always try to dissociate football from the larger societal issues. So you've got a kid who grew up in London, his friends are in London, he was born in London. His only connection to your country is that his parents come from there. At the age of 21, 22, you want him to become convinced that Ghana is more important than where he grew up, where his friends are, where his classmates are, where his best friends are, and everything. It doesn't work that way.
And to add on, Michael, just more so when you invite him to an environment where things are not transparent,
Exactly.
where it's not all competitive. He looks at his career. Once he takes it to play for the Black Stars, there's an opportunity cost of not playing for England. No, it's not going to happen.
So
It's not going to happen.
We must make a significant.
We must wake up to the reality that the fact that somebody has heritage back home doesn't make them sentimental.
Algeria, Morocco, and the rest have done it. And in most cases, a lot of these players are players, the ones who choose you are those who are on the borderline and are not sure of what it is. Look, we have a very good chance with Callum Hudson-Odoi now because it's very obvious that he's not in the long-term plans of England. The moment he becomes a Chelsea regular, 1, 2, 3, plays for 3 consistent months, gets into the next 2, 3 squads, he will not bat an eyelid. He would play for England, listen, Tomori,
over Ghana.
all those boys.
Yes.